When he was in 4th grade, Albert Einstein's parents were told he would never amount to much. He goes off to win the Nobel Prize in Physics. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper company because he lacked an imagination. He becomes a co-founder of Walt Disney Productions, which created a majority of our childhoods. More recently, though, this August, a man with 3 felony convictions for carjacking graduates from Yale. There's one thing these 3 people have in common: a choice. They have a choice to stay in the realm that someone or society as a whole has put them in, or they can make their lives what they want them to be. They chose change. Even take my family, for example. Broken entirely and built on a foundation of verbal abuse. But my number one goal in life is to protect people and to make sure that they feel safe. My older brother is happily married with 2 kids and a healthy home. But what makes these stories so encouraging? I want to persuade you to believe this one thing. The past does not define the present. There are 3 things I'd like to point out today. First, incidents of the past shape who you are as a person and how you see the world, but they don't define you. Second, we have to remember where we've been to figure out where we're going. And third, your life is your choice. Things happen in the past, and they shape you as a person and how you see the world, but they don't define you. Saying that the past doesn't make us who we are would be a lie. The events that have happened to us in our lives, whether they were happy and exciting or traumatic and terrifying, have a strong impact on how we see the world around us. Dr. Geraldine Pearson wrote an article about nurses and how they should interact with their patients. And he said this: "The assessment of adverse childhood events should be a part of a comprehensive assessment conducted by a nurse, meaning the nurse should talk to his or her patient about the experiences that they have gone through in order to better diagnose any condition that they may have had." The National Traumatic Stress Network explains it in a different way. When a child grows up afraid or under constant or extreme stress, the immune system and body's stress response systems may not develop normally. Also, adults with histories of trauma in childhood have been shown to have more chronic physical conditions and problems. That stress and anxiety and fear materialize in actual medical conditions that could last for a lifetime. So absolutely the events of the past influence your present, but they don't define your present, which leads me to my second point. We have to remember where we've been to figure out where we're going. Consider the study of history. It's required that we as students take history classes virtually every year of our education. We took them in elementary school, middle school, high school, and now in college. But why is that? Why is the educational system making us do this? It's teaching us our past. George Santayana, a philosopher, poet, and novelist, reminds us that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. When we refuse to admit the past happened, that's when we get ourselves in trouble. However, many people would argue for the opposite side, saying history repeats itself. They say we're doomed to follow in the footsteps of our ancestors. Paul Calderon, a retired history professor and now academic writer, has his readers consider this: if the past and present are so closely connected, the whole life turns out to be the unfolding ball of our past mistakes, decisions, and achievements. Still, he refutes his own argument in the end, affirming that the past can have a powerful impact on our future, but only if you allow it to happen. A person can return to the past in his memories, but can't change the events that have occurred. However, we are still the ones who create our own future. And ultimately, this leaves the individual with a choice. What am I going to do, and who am I going to become? You can stay stuck in your past. You can relive trauma all you want. If the past is where you want to stay, then the past is where you will be. But don't think for a second that you're there because you have to be. That's your choice. Yes, it's difficult to overcome adversity. Yes, it's difficult to roll out of the bed in the morning when not even the sun can make your soul feel warm. It's hard to look back. It's hard to accept everything that's happened in your life, especially if it hurt. But I want you to think about Joseph for a second. His brothers sold him into slavery. The very people he shared blood with were the ones who tried to spill his own. Instead of showing love, they showed hatred and jealousy, but in the end, Joseph says, "Even though you intended evil against me, God intended it for good." Joel Osteen, a well-known pastor, wrote a devotional similar to this. He said, "Don't let the way someone treated you or what they did or didn't give you keep from pressing forward and becoming all God has created you to be. It's a choice. Do I let my past define me, or do I choose to let it be a part of me?" If you don't hear anything I said today, I want you to hear this. God never intended your past to define your present. He used it as a wayfinder to help you get to this point right now and to help shape you into the person He intended you to be. It has nothing to do with what people did to you. It has nothing to do with what you've been through. You are a beautiful creation of God's, shaped by the events of the past. Remember where you've been to figure out where you're going and make a choice to be who you want to be, not who this world or what this society says you should be. Be proud of who you are. Follow your light. Let your past stay in the past and live for the now. Don't throw this life away for what happened back then, because what they intended for evil, God intended for good, and He doesn't make a mistake. Thank you.